Hi everyone. In the previous video, we have seen how to create groups and as well as adding users to the groups. And we have also assigned permissions to the users as well as groups. And we have also seen if we deny the permission, that user will not be able to perform the operation. And specifically, we have allowed a user to create other users in the previous video, and the user was able to create the users using the permissions which we provided. Now, some of the basics of policies. There are two type of policies. If I show you, one is managed policies and other is inline policies. So managed policies are uh, either managed by customer or AWS. So AWS managed policies are the policies which are managed by AWS. So some of the examples are like administrator access policy. If I show you that as well, if we go to policies, then so this is the policy which we created. So this is customer managed. You can see the type here, and these are the policies which are managed by AWS. So these are AWS managed policies. Now, managed policy and inline policy. Inline policies are the policies which are uh, directly attached to the resource. What that means is, uh, I can show you that. So if we, let's say, we have already seen managed policies. So let's see inline policies now. So this new user, this does not have any permissions right now. This was newly created by the test 3 user. In the previous video, you have seen this. And currently this user does not have any permissions. So what we can do is we can click here, add permissions on the right side. And then either we can add permissions like managed permissions, which we have done in the previous videos, or we can create an inline policy. So inline policy is also a JSON document that is the same with both managed as well as inline. The only difference is the ARN will not be created for this. So let's say I want to make this user administrator again. IAM. Or let's go for this. Just go here, choose one of the policy, administrator access, copy this JSON, paste here, review policy, security warnings. Okay, we are fine. Admin access inline. And then we just click on next. So these are the permissions which this policy gives. Everything, every possible permission. create policy, and it is created and added to this test for user. So now if you see, our user is having these permissions, administrator access, every permission on everything. So what is the difference between inline policy and managed policies? So now if we see managed policy, test 3 user, it is having policy to create users, that is managed policy. Okay, okay, we have removed that. Let's see test 2 user. Yes, okay. So this user is having a managed policy attached to it, that is administrator access. And so the basic idea is, if we delete if we delete this user, test 4 user, the policy will also be deleted, because that is a inline policy and that is directly attached to this. Means this policy does not have uh, any existence of its own. But if you see this policy, uh, create user policy which we created, this create user policy, let's give our user 3 this permission once again. Test 3, add permission, add permissions, attach policies, create create user policy, where it is, this one. Next, add permissions. So we have just added a managed policy which was created by us to this test 3 user once again. Now again, what is the difference between inline and these managed policies? So this customer managed policy has its own existence. What I'm trying to say is, if we delete this user now, test 3 user, okay, and we just choose this and delete this, and for confirmation type the username, delete. Now the user is deleted, but policy still remains. Because this was a managed policy. Whereas if we delete this user, test4 user, which has a inline policy attached to it, that is admin set admin access inline. Let's delete this user now. Test4. Now the user is deleted and policy is also gone. But in case of managed policy, if you delete the resource to which the policy was attached, the resource will be deleted, but policy will still remain because it is a managed policy. That is the basic difference. And managed policy will have its own ARN, means this is a separate entity within AWS, whereas inline policies are just policies which are attached to the specific resource. If the resource is deleted, the policy will also be deleted.
So a question from my side,
Yes.
Prabhsimran. Does the inline policies also have their ARN number associated?
No.
No. Okay.
No. They are directly attached to the resource to which they were assigned to. And you can see the differences in this image. Sorry, this. So it is specifically mentioned there is a strict one-to-one relationship between entity and the policy. Means if the entity is deleted, policy will also be deleted. Okay, means policy does not have existence of its own. Same thing when you delete user or group or role in which the inline policy is attached, the policy will also be deleted. If a policy could apply to more than one entity, it's better to use managed policy. So basically, if you want to use same permission for multiple resources, you should use a same you should be using a managed policy, not a inline policy. uh yeah, so that is the basic difference between managed and inline policies. I hope that is clear. Let's move to next things. Next we have roles, IAM roles. So roles are basically you can think of them like a temporary permission, or you can assign role to some services for limited amount of time. That is the basically concept of roles. They are similar to users, not exactly not exactly similar to users, but users can log into the console, but roles cannot log into the console. But roles also have permissions, users also have permissions. So in that aspect, they are same. So roles are basically used to provide permissions to services, means other services within AWS. Like for some examples are for EC2 instances, Lambda function, cloud formation. So let's say if your EC2 instance wants to do some operation, uh, let's say create some other EC2 instances, or accessing a S3 bucket, or creating IAM users or IAM roles or something like that, anything. So what you will be doing is you will be creating a role, directly attaching that role to the EC2, and your EC2 will be able to perform that operation. Uh, I hope that makes sense. If not, we just let's see one example for this. So let's create a EC2 instance. For that, you need to go to search, type EC2 here, and it is better if you choose a region which is close to you, because uh, that will help you to manage your EC2 efficiently. Otherwise, there will be a lag. So in our case, we are currently in India, so we will be choosing any region within India. So we don't have any instance right now, so let's create one. Click launch instances. You need to give any name here. Let's say test EC2. Image, we will go with Ubuntu. And if you are using a free tier account and you don't want to pay anything for this, you should make sure that it is free tier eligible uh, is shown here. Then instance type, again, if you are using a free tier account just for testing, you can use this T2 micro. Key pair, we will be needing this key pair to log into our instance. So as we don't have any key pair already existing in this account, so we can create a new key pair. Key pair name first. Create key pair, and our key file is downloaded. Now you can also specify the firewall rules. We will just go by with the default rules for now. Means we only allow SH connections to the EC2 instance from any IP, any public IP. Rest, uh, you can leave as it is for now. This is the storage space, how much space you are giving to your EC2 instance. We are giving 8 GB of hard drive to this EC2 instance. Next, these are advanced options. You can change if you want to, but for now we don't need this. Launch instance. So our instance is up and running. And this is our public IP address. Copy this, open terminal, go to downloads. Mm, first.pem, this is our file which we need. Let's move this to our AWS folder. And let's move ourselves to this folder as well. Okay. Now for connecting to the EC2 instance, we will be using this key, and by default we will be getting an error because we need to change permissions to this of this key. Let me show you. Username is Ubuntu by default, and IP address, copy, paste. Yes. So you can see bad permissions error. So we need to change permission. Chmod 400 dot slash is for current directory and the file name. Now let's try again. Okay. So we are able to log in into our newly created EC2 instance as Ubuntu user. And currently this EC2 instance is not having any permission to create any AWS resource or do some operations on the AWS environment. So now let's say we want, uh, let's say there is an application which is running on this Ubuntu instance and which is copying data from S3 bucket. Okay. Let's say there is a web application which is loading data from S3 buckets. So in that case, this EC2 instance, we need to give permissions to this EC2 instance to do that operation from means copy or list files or means do operations on the S3 bucket. So for that, we will be using roles. So that is the basic usage of roles, why we need roles. So let's see one example. So let's give this EC2 instance permission to do operations on S3 bucket. EC2, where is our EC2? So now we will be choosing security option. Then if you see, currently IAM role is empty here because we have not provided any IAM role. So we will be creating a new IAM role and attaching to it. Security, modify IAM role, choose IAM role. We have not created any IAM role, so we will be creating one. That can be done by going to IAM console. So we will be choosing create role. Now here, you need to choose a AWS service because we are giving permission. We are creating this role for the EC2 instance. And we have chosen EC2. Next. Now I want to give only permission to create do operations on S3 bucket. So for that, I don't think we have a policy for that. So we need to create a policy specifically for that. S3, all actions. I am giving every permission for the S3 buckets to this role. And to every bucket. Next, policy name S3 permissive. Full access to every S3 bucket. Create policy. So policy is created. Now we can attach this policy to our new role which we are creating. This is the one. Next, role name EC2 S3 permissive. You can give any name, but I like to give names which make sense. So our role is created. Now we just need to add this to our EC2 instance. Refresh. Now we choose this. Update IAM role. And now if we see again, our EC2 is having this role, EC2 S3 permissive role. So what that means is our EC2 instance can assume this role for a short amount of time. And every permissions which this role is having, our EC2 instance will also be able to do those operations. So if I want to show one more thing, yes. So for roles, these are the permissions. Means again, role can also have inline policies like users, which we have seen. But in this case, we are having a managed policy which is attached to this role and which is allowing to do any operations with the S3 buckets. So the next thing with role is trust relationships. Trust relationship means which service can access this role. Basically, which service can assume this role. So in this specific case, only EC2 uh, service of AWS can assume this role. So that is the meaning of trust relationship. So if let's say you want to allow your Lambda function to assume this role, you need to add that service here by just editing trust policy and add means add Lambda function as well. So in that particular case, your Lambda function will also be able to create S3 buckets or do operations on S3 buckets. So like that. And so roles are assumed for a short amount of time, and this is the default. It for so temporary credentials will be used for only 1 hour, and after 1 hour, new credentials will be generated again for the EC2 instance. And you will be able to see the sessions here. Uh, so let's try to do something with our EC2. First thing, you need to have AWS CLI if you want to do operations here, or if you are using an application, means any application is running, you need to have Boto 3 API, means it is available for every language, I think, SDK for Boto 3. It is available for Python, Java, Golang. So every language has a Boto 3 API. You just need to import that library and you will be able to perform operations to the AWS. For simplicity, let's install CLI here. apt. Or we can also do one more thing. We can directly query uh, that metadata API, and I need to check the URL for that.
What is metadata API?
Metadata API are the is the API which means which will be getting the credentials for the role which we have assigned to this EC2 instance. Let me show you. You will understand what is this. With the example, it is better. So this is metadata API is a standard basically, which every cloud provider is having. Every service which they are running is having a metadata API endpoint.
Okay.
So that is a RFC standard itself for the cloud providers. But every cloud provider, I think, is having a different IP address for that. For AWS specifically, this is the one I think. Copy, or we can search here itself. One browser. Data, data API AWS. Yeah. So 162, 169.254, 169.254. This. Copy this. Call. We will go with 1.0. Slash meta data, and we need let's say instance ID first. Four oh four not found. Public keys, host name, AM ID, reservation ID. Let's see another folder. I don't remember the correct path. Slash meta data. Yes, yeah. IAM security credentials. Yeah, okay. This is the thing we need. Slash ec2 permissive. Okay, yeah. So these are the credentials which which we are getting by assuming this role basically. So secret same access ID key, secret access key, and then we are having a token. So this token is getting expired, means after some amount of time. Means 1 hour, 1 hour is the default. And now what we can do is if any attacker got access to these credentials, uh, they can just directly copy this, all these three things, and these can be configured on your AWS CLI. So basically, attacker will be able to do operations on your uh, S3 buckets, because this is the policy which is having permissions for the S3 buckets. Uh, Now let's configure these to our CLI. For that, we need to install CLI here. Copy. Paste. Unzip is not there. Sudo. So for apt update or apt install, you need to give sudo permissions. Are you root? Yes, we are root. At least now we are. Copy. Oh, no. Get back. Apt install unzip. So unzip is installed. Now we can install AWS CLI. Sudo dot AWS. No. Sudo dot AWS install. Okay. So if you see, this AWS configure list is already showing that credentials are uh, in set for this role. And from where it is getting the credentials? IMDS. So IMDS is the this same metadata API from where uh, these credentials are automatically being set. So we don't have to actually configure the credentials manually uh, in this EC2 instance. They are being configured automatically for us. So now if we again run who am I? AWS STS get caller identity. So you can see we are assuming this EC2 S3 permissive role. What that means is we can do operations with S3 buckets now. Um, so simplest is let's create a bucket. And for that, again, we don't know the command. So let's see help. Not found. Help. CEILMNOPQRS3 API. SageMaker. S3 we have already seen. Let's see this one. AWS S3 API help. Yeah, this is also good. We can directly Google search. S3 API. So we were doing correctly, basically. S3 API. create bucket, sorry, help. Yes. So we need only bucket name. Yes, only bucket. Create bucket minus bucket, new bucket, enter. We need to specify region as well. Minus region AP South 1, unspecified location constraint. AP South 1 is correct. Create bucket operation unspecified location constraint. US East 1. No. Create bucket minus bucket. We have given the name. Mm, Google is our friend now. Create bucket. Vishal Sharma. Let's see what you are doing. Paste. Copy. Paste. Then if still we are not getting, then it means there is some issue with the permissions. Yes, we need to debug the permissions now. S3 permissive permissions, edit. S3 all actions. It is already there. Create create job. Yeah, so we don't have actually create permissions. That's why we are not able to create bucket. Save. My bucket. Region specific illegal location constraint exception. Requested bucket
Just
name
a
is
second.
not.
Just a second.
Okay.
Please continue.
Yes. So this is successful, I think, in our previous commands, and bucket has been created. Let's see. By just going to the console, S3. So the issue is some of the regions are not allowing this API to create S3 bucket. US East 1. Why we are not able to choose this? Grayed out. Let's modify here. Let's try to bypass. US East 1. I have no idea, but according to this error, bucket already exists. Bucket name is not available because it is already there in the US East 1 region. Bucket name is not available. Bucket name is shared by all users. Different name. your your bucket is created. Okay. My bucket is, I think,
Finally, mine is completed now, right?
Your bucket. We can create your bucket. uh, okay. By the way, so our mission is accomplished. We have created a role. We have attached a role to our EC2 instance, and then we were able to perform operations using assume roles uh, API, which allows you to assume role for a short amount of time. And uh, we created a role with permissions to create S3 bucket or to list S3 bucket to do all the operations over the S3 buckets. And we were able to create S3 bucket. So that was the POC for that. Yeah, that's it. Very long video. Thank you for watching if you are watching, but it was painful for me. Bye.